She was sleeping with my boss while I paid the bills. The day she found out I knew, she laughed in my face. That was her last mistake. Welcome back to the channel. If you have liked my stories, please subscribe. I want you to picture something. You come home after a 12-hour shift, back aching, shoes still wet from the rain, and your wife is sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone. She barely looks up. You ask what's for dinner. She says she wasn't feeling up to cooking. Fine. You make a sandwich. You sit across from her and you notice, not for the first time, that she's wearing perfume. At 7 in the evening. In the house. And when you mention it, she rolls her eyes like you just asked the stupidest question in the world. That was my Tuesday. That was most of my Tuesdays. My name is Phil. I'm 34, I live in Ohio, and until about 18 months ago, I was married to a woman named Cassandra. And for the last 2 years of that marriage, she was sleeping with my boss, Ryan Webb, the man who approved my vacation time, who shook my hand at the company Christmas party, who once told me I was the backbone of the department. I found out by accident, the way you find out about most things that were always hiding in plain sight, a text notification that popped up on her screen while she was in the shower. I didn't even mean to look, but I saw enough. Here's the part that still gets me. When I confronted her, she didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She got quiet for a second, looked at me, really looked at me, and then she shrugged. She actually shrugged like, "What you gonna do?" She said, "Phil, you knew this wasn't working for a long time. Stop pretending you're surprised." Then she went back to her phone. I stood in my own kitchen feeling like the walls were shrinking. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just walked to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and thought, okay, so this is what it is. What came after that I still can't fully explain. I went to work the next week and sat in meetings across from Ryan Webb, making eye contact, nodding at his feedback, watching him act like I wasn't there. And Cassandra got bolder. She stopped hiding the late nights. She'd come home some evenings and mention Ryan's name deliberately, casually, like she was testing how much I'd take. Ryan thinks the Henderson's renovation was overpriced. Ryan recommended this restaurant. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to explode so she'd have a reason to leave clean. I didn't give it to her. I just started paying attention to things I'd ignored for years. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. The man on the other end introduced himself as Elliot Hargrove. He said his sister was married to Ryan Webb. He said he'd like to meet. He said, and I remember this exactly, "I think we have a common problem, and I think you're the right person to help me solve it." I said, "Where do you want to meet?" We met at a coffee shop downtown. A quiet one. The kind of place where people bring laptops and don't bother each other. Elliot looked like the kind of man who had never once worried about money. Not because he was flashy, but because there was nothing left to prove. Quiet clothes, good watch, the kind of stillness that only comes from knowing the floor under your feet is solid. He told me his family's name, which just made me realize that, yeah, I have heard it somewhere but never could place it. They owned stakes in things like real estate, utilities, and private equity, the kind of ownership that doesn't need a press release. Old money. The serious kind. He'd been watching Ryan for 3 years. Watching him drain company accounts into shell LLCs, inflate vendor contracts, and run his personal lifestyle through corporate expenses. The paper trail was long, and it was damning. But Elliot needed one more thing. A divorce proceeding that would force a financial disclosure. Ryan's wife, Elliot's sister, Charlotte, was ready. She'd been ready for a while. She just needed the moment to be right. And the moment Elliot said, it was now. He asked me what I had. I told him about the texts. I told him about the hotel receipts I'd started photographing, the dates I'd been writing down, the timestamps. He nodded slowly. Then he said, "I'd like you to meet Charlotte." Charlotte Hargrove Webb was, I don't know how else to say this, the kind of person who walks into a room and the room reorganizes itself around her. Not loud about it, not theatrical. She was dressed simply, with dark hair pulled back, and she had these eyes that looked like they'd seen most things and decided to keep going anyway. We shook hands. She said, "So you're the one he's been dismissing all year?" I said, "Yes." She almost smiled. She said, "He makes a mistake every time he underestimates someone." We talked for 2 hours. By the end of it, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, like I was standing on ground again. The next 4 months were quiet and methodical. Elliot connected me with a divorce attorney so clean she made the process feel surgical. Charlotte's team worked the embezzlement angle with a forensic accountant and 2 attorneys who specialized in corporate fraud. I kept going to work. I kept coming home. I kept watching Cassandra mention Ryan's name at the dinner table. I kept nodding. I kept saying nothing. We filed on the same morning. I filed my divorce petition, and Charlotte filed hers. Both filings landed on Ryan's desk, metaphorically, within an hour of each other. Charlotte's father, William Hargrove, called an emergency board meeting that afternoon. The forensic audit findings went to the board and the company's outside counsel simultaneously. Before the end of the business day, Ryan Webb had been suspended pending investigation, his access cards deactivated, his corporate accounts frozen. I heard later from a coworker that Ryan sat in his office for 40 minutes after the security escort arrived, just staring at his desk, like he couldn't figure out which disaster to process first. Cassandra called me that night, twice. I didn't pick up. The divorce settlement took 3 months to finalize. She got a lump sum, a number she thought was large, and maybe it was, for a while. I wasn't cruel about it. I just wasn't generous either. Her attorney pushed on the marital assets. Mine pushed back harder. She signed. I think she expected Ryan to be waiting on the other side, fully intact, still the man with the corner office and the expense account and the future she'd traded me for. She didn't know, not yet, what had already happened to Ryan Webb. By the time her checks cleared, the man she'd bet everything on was facing federal embezzlement charges. His company shares had been forcibly transferred as part of the civil settlement. His name had been removed from the building directory. He was trying to sell the Audi to cover his attorney's retainer. I wasn't watching any of that closely. I had other things going on. Charlotte and I started spending time together slowly, the way you do when you've both been burned and you know it. We went on walks. We had long dinners where neither of us was trying to impress anyone. She laughed at the right things. She'd lived enough of a life that she wasn't looking for someone to perform for her. She just wanted something real. And I think I was the same. We both knew what it felt like when someone looked through you instead of at you. We didn't do that to each other. By the fall, I was being introduced to her family at a dinner at their estate in Connecticut, a house that had been in the Hargrove family since the 1890s, the kind of place where you can hear the history in the floorboards. William Hargrove poured me a glass of something 20 years old, shook my hand, and said, "Elliot tells me you handled yourself well under pressure. That matters to me." I told him I'd had good people around me. He said, That's the right answer." Charlotte and I got engaged on a Tuesday evening in December, on the deck of her family's yacht anchored off the coast of Newport. It was cold. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. I had a ring I'd chosen carefully, not because of what it cost, but because I knew exactly what it meant. She said yes before I finished the sentence. Someone took a photo. Her brother, from the dock below, was grinning like an idiot. It was a good photo, the kind that captures something true. It ended up on her social media, the way these things do. Dark water, lit deck, 2 people who'd found something after a long stretch of nothing. I know Cassandra saw it. I know because her phone number appeared in my missed calls that same night. Then again, 3 days later. Then a voicemail where she started soft, "Phil, I just wanted to check in. I've been thinking about you." And when I didn't respond, the tone shifted. Another voicemail, less soft. "I know you think you've moved on, but I know you, Phil. I know what we had." Then a text. "That woman doesn't know you like I do." Then nothing for 2 weeks. Then one more long, rambling, a little desperate, ending with, We could have figured it out. We could have been good. I didn't respond to any of them. The last I heard through mutual people, and I stopped asking. So this is secondhand. Cassandra had burned through most of the lump sum within 8 months. The designer bags, a lease on an apartment she couldn't actually afford, and a few trips that looked good in photos. The man she'd left me for was in legal proceedings that would follow him for years. There was no house, no security, no future that she'd been promised. There was just the aftermath of a gamble she'd made on the wrong person. Me? I'll tell you what my life looks like now. Last month, Charlotte and I flew to the south of France. We spent a week on the family yacht, a real one, not a metaphor anchored between Antibes and Cannes. Mornings, we had coffee on the upper deck, watching the light move across the water. Afternoons, we'd take the tender to shore, walk through towns where the streets are so old the stones have worn smooth. Dinners were long and unhurried. She'd rest her head on my shoulder, watching the sun go down, and I'd think, this is what it was supposed to feel like. All of it. Just this. The wedding is next spring. The Hargroves want it at the estate. I said I'd defer to Charlotte on everything and mean it. Her father has started calling me son, not as a formality, but the way you say it when you mean it. I don't think about Cassandra much. When I do, it's not with anger that's been gone for a while. It's more like the feeling you get when you realize you almost missed your train. A kind of quiet gratitude that the timing worked out the way it did. She wanted a bigger life. She just went looking for it in the wrong place with the wrong man, at the cost of the one person in her corner who would have given her everything he had. Some people don't realize what they had until they're watching someone else live it.